So I started the pumpkin and I finished it in 2 hours. Body shaping makes it look like it's straight. To check if it works. So I'm gonna unravel. It's just perfect size for my phone. But then I cast on and I kind of chickened out. Hi, my name is Maya and welcome to episode 60 of my knitting podcast, where I share all my thoughts, process and other random stuff about all things fiber related, but mostly knitting. Today is I have no idea. The 3rd of September 2025, and I'm coming to you from the French-speaking part of Switzerland, where I live with my gecko. I had a few brain farts there, sorry. So today is, I know I said last week it would be a spinning journal vlog thing, episode 2, but I haven't touched my spinning wheel, so no spinning vlog. However, I have knit a ton of stuff and I have 4 finished objects. 4. 2 of them you have never seen before because I cast them on and finished them since last week. And the reason I knit so much is because I had a photo shoot yesterday. Today is Wednesday, so yesterday was Tuesday. We had a photo shoot with my photographer friend Alexia and my friend Anna, and I just wanted to have stuff to photograph since I was having a photo shoot anyway. So I really wanted to get some whips off of the needles, which is what I did. And then I had some leftover yarns I wanted to use up. Anyway, I have only one work in progress left on my needles. And I have a lot of things to say about that one too, because if you know, you know, I did start over. Anyway, let's not get ahead of ourselves and let's start with what I'm wearing, which is one of my finished objects, which was almost finished last week. It's my muscle tank. It's a design of mine. It's currently in testing and it will be out soon. This is my second version of it. It's a DK weight and the yarn I'm using is Studio Linen by Erica Knight in the colorway 405 Remnant, I think. It's just a cool grey. And it's 100% linen yarn. It has an absolutely gorgeous drape. It's like out of this world. I have never seen something like this. It's just like flowing water. I'm totally wearing sweatpants, but I usually wear it with something like slightly high-waisted, and then I just tuck it on one side like this, kind of, just to have a slouchy, negligee look. And I'm just so happy. It's absolutely perfect. The neckline is perfect, the shoulders are perfect, the armscye depth is very deep, which is the point. I get a lot of questions from the testers which say that the armscye, the armhole is very deep. It's exactly how it's supposed to be, because muscle tanks are or have very deep armholes, because you're supposed to either have a lot of breathing room around here because you're supposed to like do muscly stuff with your arms, or see the sports bra or something that you would wear underneath it if you need to wear a bra. And that's why it's designed to be like this. However, everything is explained in the pattern if you want to shorten it and start the underarm shaping earlier so that you have a normal armhole depth. But I really wanted to have this. I am obviously not going to lean over because you're gonna see everything. But I don't care. It's just how I like to wear my stuff, and it's just like so comfortable. The fabric is incredible. It's super cooling, refreshing, and just nice to the touch. It's awesome. I really recommend this yarn. Alright, some useful stuff I can say about this. I used 4mm needles and I am slightly off gauge because I could hit gauge with this yarn, but the gauge was just a little bit too loose, and as you can probably tell, I'm not wearing anything underneath. And I think it's already a tiny bit see-through as is, and if my gauge was a bit bigger, it would definitely be see-through, so I was like, no, I'm just gonna knit tighter. And everything is explained in the pattern if you want to knit it off gauge, so I figured it was fine. So this is a DK weight, but a tiny bit tighter of a gauge. So I used 4mm for the flat sections, and then I switched to 3.75. 4 I think is US 6, and 3.75 I think is US 5. I did that because I know I knit looser when I knit in the round, because my pearls are tighter. But for most people, it's going to be the opposite. You're probably going to have to go up a needle size when you switch to in the round, if you have a difference. Like if you tend to have massive wearing out, you will probably benefit from going up a needle size when you go to in the round, or you can also not care at all. Because I did that, but I don't have any rowing out in the flat section, so yeah, whatever. I don't even think it was necessary. Now, for the sizes I did, it's super complicated. Basically, since I am off gauge, I had to knit a size bigger because my gauge was smaller. So if I wanted to have the correct dimensions, I had to have more stitches because my gauge was smaller. So I had to size up anyway, but I also had to size up because my proportions are a bit off the charts. So I ended up doing size 10 for the back, did I write it down? I just can't remember. Yeah, size 10 for the back. There are 11 sizes, by the way. Size 7 for the front. I did the underarm shaping here of size 1, and I cast on the number of stitches of size 1, I think. I didn't write it down, which meant in the end I had the bust stitch count of size 3, but since my gauge is off, I have the dimensions of size 2. That's probably a bit complicated, but whatever. I did a mashup, and again, everything is in the pattern. If you want to do something like this, it's explained. Not for those specific sizes, but it's explained the logic behind it. All right. Now, I did do it's not a modification because it's also in the pattern. There are so many things in this pattern. I added some body shaping. You can see here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th one is in the bind off row. Here, because I don't know if you can tell, it's kind of resting on my hips, but if I lift my shoulders so that it's not touching my hips anymore, you can see it's very, very slightly flaring out at the bottom. But if I lay it flat, it's definitely like shaped with decreases, but when you wear it, it feels like this because of the shape of your body, because there is more tissue here than here. I mean, for my kind of body, and it just looks like this. And the point of the decreases is to avoid having too much flaring out, which is not really flaring out because there is the same amount of fabric at the top than at the bottom if there is no body shaping. But with the way the body works, it looks like it's flaring out if you don't do anything here. So I added some decreases. I think in total I removed 20 stitches, so I have 20 stitches less at the bind off than here where I joined, but it still looks like it's kind of flaring out. So that's the point of body shaping. I get this question sometimes. Basically, you don't need to have as much positive ease on the hips than on the bust. So I think on the bust I have something like 10 to 15 centimeters of positive ease, so like 4 to 6 inches. And on the hips I only have probably 2 inches, so a lot less than on the bust. But that's how you make something look like it's consistent across the body. So it may sound a bit counterintuitive, but body shaping makes it look like it's straight. That's why it's in the pattern. But you are free to modify the rate if you don't want to have as much decreases as I have here. And that way you can have the very casual, straight look I have here. And at the bottom I did a simple, just normal bind off, so it's not stretchy at all, but I still have more than enough room to first have it on and also to pass it over my shoulders, so it's totally fine for me. And if you have too much ease, not ease, but if your bind off is too stretchy, it will roll up. FYI, don't do a bind off too stretchy. Now, regarding the yarn, it does lay completely flat because it's 100% linen. It's 85% recycled linen and 15% premium linen. And it does lay very flat, which is also why it's not rolling out at all on the bottom. But also on the edges here, I mean, it's the point to have this detail where it kind of folds over itself, but it's not like rolling it like this. So the yarn is laying kind of flat, which is what I wanted. And, oh, I forgot to tell you something. which is super important regarding the fit. This tank is designed to have the tip here, that's exactly at the tip of the shoulder. So something like this here, kind of. But I wanted this sample to be oversized to show how a different fit would look like. So this one is fitting me a bit more over the tip of the shoulders. It drops a tiny little bit. It's just a different fit. Which is why I sized up. I just stopped in the middle of what I was saying before. I sized up because my gauge was smaller, and I also sized up because I wanted the shoulders to drop a little bit more. That's why I ended up with size 10 and size 7 or 8. Instead of the usual, like for my fingering weight sample, that's on gauge, I have like size 4 and size 1 for the shoulders, for the back and on the front. So this is a different fit you can get with the same design. Now, regarding the yarn, I wanted to add something. It's a lovely yarn. I definitely recommend it. I mean, it's gorgeous, of course. But also, there are a few things you need to consider with it. Like, it's super, super mega splitty. And I only realized it because I was watching someone's podcast and they mentioned that they were knitting with a yarn that was super splitty. I was knitting on this one and I was like, oh, it's also splitty AF. But I didn't realize because I don't mind splitty yarns. And basically, it's not that when you go into the stitch, you can like separate a thread with the tip of the needle. It was more when I was coming out of the stitch, I was always catching half of the back leg of the stitch I was knitting in when I was going out, and that's when I was splitting the yarn. And it was, I guess it is something annoying, but I just don't mind, and I didn't realize it was a problem until someone pointed it out, not to my specific yarn, but pointed it out in their project. So if you are, I was about to say sensitive, if you don't like splitty yarns, I don't think this one is for you, but if you don't mind, like me, definitely, yeah, it's splitty, that's all. Do with that information what you want. And it was also kind of challenging to weave in the ends because it's a DK weight, so the thread is kind of thick, but it's also very drapey, as you can tell, and linen yarns or just plant-based yarn in general are kind of difficult to weave in ends in an invisible way because usually you end up with like a patch of thicker stitches if you do it not in a nice way. And what I did with this one, I'm just going to show you how it looks like as a thread. So it's pretty, I mean, it's not thick, but it's not, yeah, it's like a DK weight. And it's composed of what am I saying? 6, if I try to separate them like this. Each individual like ply is composed of 3 other plies. So in total, it's 6 times 3 plies, so that's 18 plies total. But each of them are really, really thin, like a sewing machine thread thin. And that's part of why it's super splitty, but it's, I guess, also why it's so drapey and beautiful. It's just how the texture of the yarn is achieved. And it's also why it has such a gorgeous definition, because the thread is very, very round. You cannot really like make it flat. And even if it kind of unravels like this, I have a few sections where it was unraveling, but you cannot really tell in the fabric. It doesn't really make a big difference. So it's kind of forgiving. Probably not in the gauge, but I don't have any gauge issues, so I cannot tell you how it's going to look like if you row out or something like that. But to weaving the ends, what I did is I separated the strand in 2 halves. So I had 3 big plies in each side, and then I wove those into the purl bumps, into 1 column of purl bump each. So I have 2, let me just show you, it's going to be easier. So this is the end I wove in at the end. So I separated the thread, I had 1 thread coming out of here because that's when I finished the bind off, and I separated it into 2, and I wove each half into the purl bumps of 1 column, here and here. And I didn't do a U-turn because that can cause the stitch where you do the turn to be a bit like pulled in a weird way from the right side. So I don't do a U-turn, I just go through a lot of stitches in this direction, and it's holding up just fine. So here is where I join the ball, so I have 4 ends. because I separated each of the 2 ends into 2 each, so I have 4 ends total. And I only picked up half of the pearl bump. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show you, but the thread only goes into the very top of the pearl bump. So I used a very sharp needle, and I only picked up like half of the pearl bump, and I went inside the actual thread because it holds better that way. And if you go through under the whole pearl bump, it's definitely going to show on the right side. Whereas with this method, it doesn't. So this is where I have woven in the end, and on the right side you cannot see anything. And I also have a ton of ends woven around here, but again, it's completely invisible. So that's a neat way to weave ends with a thick yarn that's 100% plant-based or silk. Now, I had some leftovers, and I was hesitant. In the last episode, I knew I would have some leftovers because I had my 2 swatches, and I knew I wouldn't need the 2 swatches to finish the body. And I was hesitant to knit like a bow or a ribbon or something for the hair, like a hair accessory. And I said I didn't want to do my usual Augustins number 22 because I thought the cute look of a bow like this wouldn't really fit with the muscle look. But then I realized I actually really like when there is a clash in styles in an outfit. So I was like, I'm totally gonna do an Augustins number 22. So I did. And it's super cute, it's super tiny. And I did something to use up the most of the yarn I had. So basically, the pattern tells you to cast on a certain amount of stitches and then do decreases on the point here, and you knit in the round. So I calculated how many stitches I had in my 2 swatches. So I just multiplied the number of rows by the number of stitches in each swatch, and I had something like 3,200 stitches, something like that. And then I calculated how many stitches I would need to cast on and how many rows I could work to end up with about 3,200 stitches, so that I could make the most out of my yarn, the yarn I could get from the 2 swatches. And it gave me 220 stitches circumference to cast on and 12 rows, I think, something like that. And with the yarn you get back from decreasing here on the corners, you can do the bind off and on both sides, because you knit in the round and you need to close both sides of the bow, and the tie in the middle. But then I cast on, and I kind of chickened out, and I was scared to play too much of a yarn chicken game, which is dumb because I usually love yarn chicken, but I don't know, I literally chickened out. And I only cast on 210 stitches, and I'm super annoyed because now I have this much yarn left, and this is exactly the 10 stitches too little I cast on, and I could have ended up with 0 yarn left, but now I have this guy, and I was so close from perfect, but it's not the perfect. Anyway, so now I have this very cute bow, which is a very reasonable size. For once, it's not too huge, so that's good. And I have only steam blocked it, and you can kind of tell I used unraveled yarn because it's a little bit uneven. It's definitely less even and beautiful fabric than this one. So I could wet block it, but now that I have completely knotted it, made a knot with it, it's gonna take ages to dry, so I'm not sure I'm gonna really wet block it at all. Yeah, I don't know, whatever. Maybe on a very, very sunny and bright day when it's gonna dry pretty fast, but yeah, I will see. So usually when I put those on, so I have an elastic here on the back, and I put it in this very specific way in my hand. So I have the elastic on my fingers here and the bow in the middle of my hand, and it's in the correct side when I hold it like this, not like this or whatever. When I have my arm up like this, it's in the correct side. And then I grab my hair like that. Can you even see? Probably. I pass the elastic around. I pull the hair through. And then the bow is going to be reversed, but it's in the right direction here. I have no idea if you can see that. And then I put it, I pass it on the back, and I do 1/2 turn like that with my fingers in it, and I grab my ponytail again, and then I pull it, and it's again in the correct direction. It doesn't flip when you do this, and now it's just resting on my ponytail. And that's how I wear them. And this one is super small and cute. I'm so happy I did that. And I really like, I like the contrast of the super sporty and kind of masculine look with the very cute and dainty little bow. I think it's super cute. So I'm very happy I did that. And I'm very annoyed I have this much left. Anyway, next finished object is kind of out of the blue, but not really, because it was in my summer knitting plans. And basically, I have this little guy. It's the Jasmine Pumpkin by, I'm not going to try and pronounce the name, I'm sorry. But it's a designer that has a lot of jasmine stitch designs. And this is the super cute pumpkin. I made it with Nutiden last year, I think, or maybe at the beginning of this year, I don't remember. And I've always wanted to make another one with my Nutiden leftovers to put near my plant wall in my kitchen, because I have one board or whatever at the top that's too shallow to have a plant in, but I wanted to have something that had kind of the same color palette as the plants, and the pumpkin was perfect. And I was just pushing it back, and I know this was super fast to do, so I knew it would be a super fast project, but for some reason I was always pushing it back. And yesterday morning before the photo shoot, I finished this, I finished the bow, and I was kind of done with the other things I wanted to knit, so I had a few hours to spare, and I was like, I'm just gonna cast on a pumpkin. And I did, so I started the pumpkin, and I finished it in 2 hours. This is super fast to do. It's crochet, and it's super huge yarn thickness, and the crochet is not that big, but the jasmine stitch grows up very fast, so yeah, that just took 2 hours. And I'm super pleased with the color choice. It's one of my favorite color combos. Can you tell? It's again purple and teal. I just love it. And I used 2 colors of Nutiden, and I held them 3 strands together. So here I have 3 strands of Frende. I'm not really sure how you say that. And then I swapped 1 thread of purple with 1 thread of kind of turquoisey color. It's called Bitan. And then I swapped another thread of purple with another thread of turquoise. So here I have 2 of purple and 1 of turquoise, and then 2 of turquoise and 1 of purple. And then I ran out of the purple somewhere here in the middle. And I used another leftover or whatever yarn I had in a very similar color. But this purple is just a little bit less saturated, but you absolutely cannot tell. So I'm pretty happy about that. So I completely finished the purple I had, which is great. And it's mega cute. It's a little bit bigger than the other one, and it's a little bit more wonky because the tension in the beginning, my tension was a little bit tighter, so I was pulling the puff stitches a little bit less far away or less long, and then I started to relax when I got to this part, and then I tightened up again when I started the decreases, so it's kind of flaring out and then coming in really, really hard, so I have like angles here. It's not very round. It's looking a bit better from this side. It's definitely not as round as this one, but whatever. It's not supposed to be anything anyway in these colors, and the point is for it to match the colors of my plant, which is does. I mean, the purple does. My plants are not turquoise, but it's okay. It's mega cute. And it's gonna be perfect for my kitchen. Hopefully I can have a bit of B-roll to show you where it's supposed to go. So yeah, definitely recommend this for a very quick and easy stash buster, because I think I used 40 grams of Nutiden for this. So that's a lot of yarn in very little time to use. Alright, now my last finished object is just as huge as this one was small, because lo and behold, it's my Patagonia Peaks. Ooh, look at this. It's incredible, and I finally finished it. I left it on hold because it was just too hot. It was the middle of summer, and there was no way I was going to knit with this gigantic beast on my lap. So So I just put it on hold. Basically, all I have left to do was one sleeve. I had stopped about here. And it just stayed there for like 2 months. And when I picked it up, I realized why I never put projects on hold, because it was a pain to get back into the rhythm, because I couldn't remember. I mean, I left the needles inside at least, so I could remember what needle size I was using. But I couldn't remember if I was knitting the sleeve inside out, and my hands had completely forgotten the tension I was using, because this is a very specific yarn, and I have been knitting on lots of summer thin or very dense, non-stretchy summer yarns, so going back to boucle was a bit hardcore of a change. And yeah, it's color work, and I couldn't remember how I was doing the ladderback jacquard for the long floats, and I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't remember if I switched to magic loop at some point, or I had no idea, and it was not funny to get back into it, and I lost so much time. I had to rip back so much because my floats were a mess, and yeah, I really didn't enjoy the first. I got back here and this was a pain, and then I started enjoying it again from here. So this part took probably twice as long as the rest. And that's just a reminder that I really don't like letting projects sit for a while. I would much rather start something and finish it right away. And I'm just not a multiple long-term WIPs girly. I just don't like that. Anyway, so the yarn I'm using is Bubbly Boucle by Knit Picks Hal Double. It's a sport weight yarn, and this is like an Aran weight gauge, kind of. The garter gauge is like, I don't remember, I think it's like 12 stitches, and the colorwork gauge is 16 stitches. Yeah, it's a pretty chunky gauge, and it uses 4 colors, and it has this double-sided, very chunky garter collar here. And it has this also button band that has a very clean finish on the inside, because you cannot see the pickup chain here. And I'm so happy about this detail. And the construction is a bit special because you cast on here all the stitches of the yoke. I mean, almost all the stitches of the yoke, and then you knit up, doing decreases for the sleeve along this line here. And then you do a very, very interesting thing to like decrease the sleeve cap stitches here, and then you do the sleeve seam with a double bind off. It's a super neat technique. It's super easy to do, but it's very, very fun. And then you are left with all the live stitches of the collar, so you don't have to pick up stitches. And then there are 2 options. You can either have the I-cord detail I have here, which requires picking up, or you can skip that and just knit straight into the collar without having to pick up stitches. It's up to you. It depends on the yarn you're using and the amount of faffing you want to do with picking up with a boucle, but the 2 options are there. Yeah, whatever. That's a very interesting design, I think, and I was a bit worried because the construction is very unusual. It's kind of a reverse ziggurat. So the ziggurat method is already like, not complicated, but it's unusual, and it involves a lot of small steps, and it's kind of a trust the process kind of thing, because you don't necessarily understand why you are doing so many small steps, and it's only when you're done that you're like, oh, that's why. And yeah, ziggurat is a lot less known than like a drop shoulder or round yoke or raglan. And this is a reverse ziggurat, because ziggurat usually you knit top down, but this is bottom up. And I have never seen that. I don't think I invented it, but maybe I did. Anyway, it's super neat, it's super fun to do. And then you have the stitches here. So you did the double cast on, so Judy's magic cast on, so you have the live stitches that are still waiting for you here. And you just start working in the other direction, and you only knit in the round because you don't have this opening anymore in the colorwork section. So all the colorwork is knit in the round. You're welcome. And so yeah, you finish the underarm here with increases on both the body and the sleeve. And then you work the sleeve with decreases, and then you work the body straight, and then you have this neat detail at the cuffs with a I-cord bind off, 5-stitch I-cord bind off. And I went with a 5-stitch I-cord bind off because before I had a folded over stockinette detail, but it was more painful to do the folded over stockinette hem than doing a 5-stitch I-cord bind off. I know a lot of people hate I-cord bind offs, but believe me, it was way worse to do the other option. So sorry, not sorry, with the icro bind off. And you have this channel where you can have an elastic in, and you have this kind of cord stopper thing that you can change the width of the body with. And I'm super happy. Yay! It's finally done. I'm not sure I'm gonna put it on because it's so hot. Okay, I really love you, so I'm gonna suffer through this for you. Oh my god. Despite the ladder bar jacquard, I still catch the floats with my fingers whenever I put it on, like this, but it's okay. I'm just really careful, and once it's on, it's on. I don't have to care about it too much. So this is what it looks like. The sleeves are long and very cozy, so this is exactly the length I like, because if you put a coat on, it tends to ride up, and then here you still have kind of the wrist covered, so that's very important to me. And you have the quarter zip thing here with the pocket, and yes, it's a usable pocket because I have the pocket lining in here. So if I take it out, you can see here the lining, and it's big enough to hold my phone. It's just perfect size for my phone. I'm definitely not gonna have my phone in there because it completely stretches out the fabric, but in theory, it's big enough for my phone. And it has snap buttons. Ah, there you go. I'm just so pleased. It's looking so cool. This one is size 3. I didn't do any messing around with the back and the front sizes because the shoulder fit just doesn't matter at all. I mean, the shoulder detail can be anywhere here. Doesn't really make a difference. The only change it can have on the fit is that the lower the sleeve seam is, the lower this part is going to be, and the lower the sleeve is going to hit. So if this was lower, the sleeve would be longer on me, and it could be too long. So I included in the pattern a few different options with the sleeve length. So I have the decrease rates for 5 pattern repeats, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For 4, if you want to shorten the sleeve to here, you have a different decrease rate for 4 motifs, and for 6 if you want to lengthen the sleeve. So I have 3 different decrease rates for any kind of situation, because you really need to finish on a pattern repeat. Otherwise, I mean, you can, but it's not going to look as good as this. And so that you don't have to do all the calculations yourself, I put the different options in the pattern. And it's kind of heavy. I think in total I have no idea how much. I wrote it down. I am so hot. I'm sweating. It's horrible. Hurry, I'm too hot. I want to take it off. So about 150 grams for each contrast color, 200 grams for the main contrast color, and 270 grams for the pink color. Which in total is 300, 500, 700, almost 800 grams. So it's pretty chunky. It's a big knit, but it's a big knit. I mean, obviously, it's supposed to be a Patagonia fleece jacket dupe kind of thing. And I think I did a pretty good job with that. So let me take it off because I'm dying. The testers are using a lot of very different yarns than mine. So there are going to be a lot of different options for you to choose from, which is good because it's actually kind of difficult to find a yarn that's bouclé, that has the right fiber, the right gauge, the right everything. It's kind of tricky, so I'm glad the testers are doing lots of different stuff. And it's going to be super interesting to see. The pattern is coming out mid-October, so middle of next month, hopefully. All right, now that's all for my finished objects, finally. So I can start talking about my works in progress. So the first one is, the only one I have, is my Shady Hoodie. So last week I showed you my first version. Yes, spoiler alert, there is a second one. So this is what it looks like. It's one of those hoodies that fits with a very great fit around the shoulders, and that's a little bit oversized. Not too much. It's not supposed to be huge like the Patagonia Peaks, but it's supposed to have a little bit of room, but not too much. and it's a hoodie. So my first version, I wasn't sure about a lot of things, so if I try it on, I can show you. Basically, one of the issues was that the sleeves were making like a princess sleeve effect. And I knew I could make it better, but also I hadn't so much on it, so I wasn't sure if I had the courage to start over, but yeah, this is not okay at all. This is absolutely not what I wanted in so many different areas. Like first, the princess sleeve was an issue, but also so many other things were not what I wanted. So this is blocked. I wet blocked it, and you can see how the yarn is. It's like structured. It's definitely not as drapey as this. It's a structured yarn, but it's still nice to the touch. But I raved enough about the yarn in the last episode. So this is Nightshades in the colorway Fever Dreams by Harrisville Designs. This is the tag. And it's a black yarn heathered with red. So you have this very lovely, like, starry sky effect. It's gorgeous. I love it. There were a lot of things that were not working, so I decided to start over. So let me show you the second version. That's very different, but also not very different. So this is how it's looking like. I'm almost at the same spot, so I have a bit of progress on the body and I have more than half on the sleeve. And you're not gonna see a huge difference like this, but if I put it on, you will see. So this is a ziggurat construction, so it's the same as the Patagonia Peaks, but it's the standard way where you knit from the top down. So if I put it on, I think you can already tell. The fit is so much better. Ah, yes. So let me get you through the modification I did. So first, the back neck, or rather the neck opening, is a lot less wide because it's going to be complicated to explain, but something happened and I did a mistake, and it's not that I forgot to take into consideration that there was not going to be any trimming, because usually, you pick up stitches from the cast on and then you knit a little bit here, or you do a double knit bend or whatever, but you're going to have a trimming on the inside here. But since this is a hoodie, you don't have the trimming, but I did take this into consideration. But something else happened that made that the neckline was too wide. And I was super pissed when I noticed I did this mistake. And it wasn't even the obvious mistake of I forgot I wasn't going to have trimming on the inside. But it's a bit too complicated to explain. Whatever. So I did the neck opening a lot less wide. So now it has this nice shape around the neck, which is perfect. I, of course, completely changed the sleeve cap and the sleeve so that you don't have the princess sleeve effect. And basically what I did, before I had the sleeve cap here, so the part where you pick up stitches from the rows of the shoulder here, I had picked up 12 stitches and I changed it to 18. So 6 extra stitches, which made it this wide. And I also changed the pickup rate, so I picked up less stitches. So all in all, it's a lot wider than before. And now I have this perfect fit over the shoulder like this. It doesn't do the bop anymore. So that's excellent. I'm super happy about this. Look at that. It almost looks like a tailored vest, which is not the point, but yeah. It's only steam blocked, by the way, until like here. And I also have the V-neck that's a lot less deep, mostly because the neck opening is a lot less wide, so I had less stitches to increase on the V-neck, so it's end much higher. Before, I think it was ending like down here, but instead it's here now. I also wanted the sleeve to be less wide, because before it was 76 stitches and now it's 66. So I removed 10 stitches and it's not blocked again. It's only steam blocked to about here. It's a bit, I think it's a bit too small. I would prefer if I had 4 more stitches. However, my arms are bigger than my bust size. So it's normal that I don't have enough room, but I would like my sample to fit me as a normal size 2 would fit someone with a normal proportions. So this is not how it's supposed to fit on you. If you have normal sized arms, you should have a bit more room than I have. And I also had the arm side that was less deep, because before it was mega deep. It was going to down here, I think, because the sleeve was too big. And now I did less increases on the sleeve, which means the arm side came up, and now it's a perfect height. I think it wouldn't hurt if it was a little bit lower, but again, my shoulders and my arms are bigger than the usual for my bust size. So if you are more straight size than me, you're gonna have a bit more room than I have here. It's basically my shoulders here on the back that are very bulky, and they kind of steal fabric up here. They kind of pull the garment like this, so I have less room than you're supposed to have, but it's still perfectly okay. I don't feel constrained in any way, and I could wear a t-shirt underneath pretty easily. And I think that's all the modifications. Basically, I changed everything, and I'm just so happy I did that. It just fits so much better now. And it does look very like dressed up and clean, but with the hoodie on and with the detail here that's gonna close up the gap, it's not gonna be a V-neck anymore, it's gonna be a round neck, so it's definitely gonna be less dressy. But yeah, for now it doesn't really look casual, but it's gonna be better afterwards, I promise. Anyway, I think I'm still gonna frog it, not completely, only to like up here, because I mentioned the sleeve is a tiny bit too small. I'm gonna get a bit more room with blocking, but I still would like to have a bit more room than that. And the main problem is gonna happen here, because my forearms are absolutely huge, because I climb a lot and my forearms are basically the muscle I use the most. So those are completely off the charts for sure. And if I continue doing the decreases at the rate I'm doing here, it's gonna be fitted. It's gonna be like almost negative ease, which is not okay. So usually what I do is I change the decrease weight of my sleeves, but I have something else I would like to change here in the sleeve shaping. So I might as well just start over this part so that I can do the modification here. So I'm gonna unravel the sleeve and then the body, the yoke until here, and I'm gonna try my modification. Battery change. I thought this episode would be smaller because I filmed last week, but apparently it's not. So yes, that's all for the Shady Hoodie. I did knit a lot to get back to this stage in a few days, and my hands kind of hurt because it's flat knitting, and yeah, my hands hurt. So I'm glad I had this morning to do the grading so that I could chill out with my hands a little bit, and then I'm going to edit this video tomorrow, so again, a bit of a break for my hands, which is nice because it was, yeah. Also, I went from knitting this bad boy on small circumference needle, which I am a little bit tense on, to this one knitting flat. It was a lot for my poor hands. I'm going to try and go climbing tonight. Hopefully it's going to make a change of pace. Maybe it's going to be worse. I'm not sure it's a good idea, but I really want to go climbing. Anyway, coming up, the muscle tank will be released in 2 weeks. Did I even say that? I don't remember. Next Thursday, no, Thursday in 2 weeks, on the 18th of September, muscle tank is going to come out. So there are going to be a fingering weight version and a DK weight version in the same pattern, and all the modifications I mentioned earlier. So it's a great pattern. There is a lot of room for personalization in one pattern. And yeah, I hope you're going to enjoy it. I have also this Friday, so tomorrow for you, but the day after tomorrow for me, I'm going to go to a to a brand new yarn shop near me. So I live in Lausanne, and there is a town like a 30 minutes drive from where I live, which is called Yverdon. And there is a brand new yarn shop there. And the owner reached out like 2 weeks ago. If you follow my Instagram, I think you saw that. But it was so cute. She asked if I wanted to do a collab with her. And I was like, yes, of course, please. And it's even more incredible because, so that was 2 weeks ago. And I had a bit of a mental breakdown because, yeah, my professional situation is a bit difficult because I'm unemployed. I mean, mostly unemployed. I have a very small part-time job. I don't have a very high income, and it's a difficult situation. And most of the time, I'm pretty strong about it, and I don't let myself get, how do you say that, depressed by the situation or whatever. I'm usually pretty positive, and I stay strong, but sometimes I don't. And I had a breakdown 2 weeks ago. And I was like crying and telling my boyfriend I wasn't sure if this whole knitwear designing thing was ever going to work. And yeah, it was a difficult moment, and he was trying to help me. He doesn't know anything about knitting, but he's trying to be helpful. So he told me, maybe you could try and do like a collab with a yarn shop or something. And I was like, yeah, but there are so little yarn shops around me, and I don't want to reach out to people and ask for stuff, because last time I did the collab, it wasn't really a great experience. So I cannot force myself to be the one to ask again when I'm not even sure it's going to work out. I want people to come to me, because if I am the one reaching out, I feel like people are just going to say yes because they want to be nice, and then they don't really want to do it. So he was like, yeah, okay, I understand, but I really think you should do it anyway. And a couple of hours later, this super cute person reached out on Instagram, and she said, hey, do you want to do a collab with a brand new yarn shop in Yverdon? And I was like, oh my god, is this the universe giving me a sign? Because the timing was so perfect. Like within a couple of hours, two universal signs told me I should do a collab with a yarn shop. So of course I said yes. So I'm gonna go visit her Friday. The shop is pretty far away from me. I don't have a car, so I'm gonna have to take the train. So it's gonna be more like an hour and a half ride. But it's okay. I like to knit in a train, so it's gonna be fine. And we're gonna see how it goes. I have no idea if something is gonna happen or not, and if something happens, what it's gonna be. We have some ideas, but we're just gonna discuss and see what we can do. So it's just a funny thing that's coming up, and I'm super excited about it. And I, of course, hope it's gonna work out, but we will see. I have another. It's not a collab. It's more like a pop-up event. Oh my god, pop-up event at another yarn shop that's in my town, coming at the end of October. But it's a different kind of event, because it's like a pop-up. Why can't I say that? Pop-up event. So she's gonna have my patterns, and she's gonna have kits available, and it's just gonna be like a public thing where people are just gonna come by and maybe buy my patterns. So it's a bit different than a true collab, where you collaborate on a project together. Anyway, we're just gonna see. This is coming up, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And for next week, I don't really know what kind of video I will do, because I would like to do the spinning vlog I was supposed to do this week, but I'm not sure I'm gonna have more time to spin this week than I had last week, so I'm not sure. I would like to do a fall pattern roundup video, because I like to do a pattern roundup video for every season, and fall is coming up. The weather has definitely cooled down here, and for kind of everyone, I guess. And I try to only select patterns that are size inclusive, because it's very difficult to find pattern roundup from size inclusive designers. And usually when you have like pattern inspirational video, it's always the same designers, always the same patterns, always the same shapes, always the same stuff, and I just like having something a bit different to share to people. So I can also do that. I don't know. And by the way, if you have pattern ideas, drop them below, definitely, from size inclusive designer. I really insist. Size inclusive designer, please. Sometimes I even get designers that self-plug their work, and they are not even size inclusive, and I'm like, bro, if you're size inclusive, you know you are. So what? Anyway, or I could do a podcast. You never know. I might have again 4 finished objects next week, and maybe I will do another podcast episode. Who knows? Let's be real. It probably won't happen, because this weekend I'm gonna go climbing. So if I climb during the whole weekend, I cannot knit that much, so I don't think I'm gonna have a new podcast episode next week. Whatever. In any case, I recommend you subscribe if you don't want to miss out on any future content I may put out. Thank you so much for your likes, for your support, for your comments. I appreciate every single one of your gestures. Can you say that in English? Vos gestes. J'apprécie vos gestes. Thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you again next time. I love you. Happy knitting. Bye.